Back here on HQ Spotlight as the madness is upon us. Yesterday, we broke down BJ Taylor's bracket, and now we have Mike O'Donnell in the house along with Jenny Dell, and we're going to go through region by region, guys, with Mike's bracket, how he sees things shaking out. Jenny, we started the show with an awkward high five, and there's only one man for the job who I know can out-awkward myself. It is Mike O'Donnell.
Get over here.
So I am waiting for a high five to kick us off.
We already did it. I did it right away. Yeah. Thank you.
That felt good.
Yeah.
That felt right.
Yeah. It felt good.
Jacqueline, we do have to work on our high five, but I taught Jacqueline a little tip and trick. You got to look at the elbow.
Great move. Yeah.
So maybe at the end of the show, we will do a better high five.
Power move,
It started off a little rough. Okay, so as Jacqueline said, we are going to go through the entire bracket. We're going to start with our South region over here. Are you ready for this? Because this is going to be a lot of chatting on your end.
It's March. I woke up dancing this morning. I'm ready to go.
We've just found out that you're a great dancer only during the month
embarrassing.
of March.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to start looking at this bracket. We have Auburn, of course, as the #1 overall seed. We saw last night that Alabama State game came out strong. That was an incredible finish in that one. A little sloppy play there, but that's all right. Louisville and Creighton at that 8-9 spot right there. But we are going to start here and looking at Michigan. So Michigan we have coming in as a #5, even though they won the Big 10 tournament. Have to go to Denver, play UC Davis team that is 36 in Ken Palm. A lot of people high on UC San Diego, Are you high on them?
Well, what I'll also say, I think I got Creighton advancing there. That's a tough game between, there are a lot of pick and roll, defense, offense. Louisville, top 5 in the country in pick and roll offense. Creighton has a great defense with Ryan Kalkbrenner there. So, but Michigan, yes, I hate to do this to Dusty May. I love Dusty. But this is an upset that I'm picking. This is a 12-5 upset. UC San Diego.
Not UC Davis, UC San Diego.
UC San Diego, yeah. So UC San Diego, the thing about them is they force about 16 turnovers a game. That's 8th in the country. Michigan is one of the worst teams in college basketball in turning the ball over. They were not good during the Big Ten play. They took them a while to kind of figure out their offense. Once they did, they figured it out. But Michigan still turns the ball over way too much, Jenny. This is a bad matchup for the Wolverines. UC San Diego, they have a scorer named Aniwa Tate Jones, a player for them, top 20 in the country in scoring, and they are one of the best steal teams in the country. Tough matchup for Michigan.
All right, you look at this Texas A&M, Yale going at it. What do you think is going to happen quickly with that one? Everybody's
going to pick Yale for the trendy upset here. I like this Texas A&M team. Too physical, too tough. Individual styles of play, especially with Wade Taylor at the point, scoring point guard, like Texas A&M to advance.
So interesting getting different perspectives on this because I would say the majority of our other analysts here at CBS Sports were saying that it's going to be Yale in this one. We love a good one. BJ Taylor, one of those guys. We saw it on the bracket yesterday here on Spotlight. Okay, moving forward, we got Ole Miss, North Carolina, an 11-6 matchup. North Carolina, the big drama surrounding that team, whether they deserve to be here or not. We saw what they were capable of last night. Not sure what was going on with San Diego State in that game, but North Carolina trying to prove that they belong here. What do you think is going to happen?
I was one of the people that dismissed North Carolina early on when the bracket came out. I do not think they had a good enough resume to get in over West Virginia. However, they're in. They won the game last night playing Ole Miss, and this is a bad matchup for Ole Miss. I like the size, I like the physicality, I like the strength of North Carolina to advance. When North Carolina's making shots, North Carolina wins. When they're missing threes, they lose. That sounds very obvious, very simple, very cliche. If you go and look at the box scores and when North Carolina plays their best, it's not just about their tempo. They love to play in fast break. When they're making threes, everything changes for the Tar Heels. That's a tough draw for Ole Miss, who's a great SEC team. I can't believe I'm saying this. I like North Carolina to advance.
What?
Yes, I know. Crazy.
I feel like you're going to create some haters with that comment out there.
No haters. It's not that I played at NC State my freshman year. It's not that reason specifically. I would never do that. But it's,
of course not.
I will say, though, it's going to be a great game.
When you look at this 14-3 matchup we got here, who do you think is going to advance there? Do you think Iowa State has a clear path?
I have such a heart for mid-major basketball, especially Lenny Acuff, the head coach for Lipscomb. They run one of the more efficient offenses in the country. They have not played anybody with size. Iowa State has size. They have efficiency. They have toughness. This could be a 20-point win for Iowa State.
Okay, I want you to work your way through the rest of this, and then I got some questions for you.
Oh boy, now I'm nervous.
All right, Marquette,
okay.
New Mexico.
I absolutely love this. Might be one of my favorite matchups, second favorite matchup of the entire first round. Marquette, New Mexico. Cam Jones from Marquette, right? AP All-American versus Donovan Dent. I don't think there are 4 better point guards in the country than Donovan Dent of New Mexico. Different styles of play, up-tempo for New Mexico. Marquette likes to grind you out. Like Marquette, everybody's picking New Mexico. Love the Mountain West. Love what Coach Pitino has done, but I like Marquette. Michigan State, Bryant, very, very, very tough matchup for Bryant. I think this could be a 25-point win for Michigan State. Sparty, too fast, too good offensively.
All right, we're working our way down here. So between Auburn and Creighton, who are you going with?
What a great, that's such a great matchup. I still think Auburn advances. They've been the best team in the country collectively. They're top 10 in Ken Palm's metrics, both offensively and defensively. Creighton's good. Auburn has the strength, has the size, and has the speed to defend Creighton both inside and out.
UC Davis, Texas A&M. Why do I get, you know what? You know why it is? My cousin went to UC Davis. He's a professor there now, so it's just stuck in my head. UC San Diego. You know,
we all know that
south.
About you, yeah.
We're going down.
Yeah.
Let's go. UC San Diego,
San
Texas
Diego,
A&M.
yes.
San Diego.
So I like UC San Diego here, not UC San Davis.
Yeah, right.
UC San Diego, their defense, that's going to be a problem. UC San Diego has one of the best defenses in the country. I think it really frustrates Texas A&M guards. I like UC San Diego, in the Sweet 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm debating whether I should listen to everything you have to say when I go home and fill in my bracket tonight, because you have to fill out your bracket ASAP at this point.
My bracket is filled out. However, we know that it's not going to work.
I have it right here.
Yeah.
I might just copy it, but I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this so far. All right, between North Carolina, very high in North Carolina, going up against Iowa State.
This is where the journey does end for North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, Iowa State. I think Iowa State is one of the 7 or 8 teams that can actually win a national championship this season. Now, I say that, no Keyshawn Gilbert. That was announced. TJ Oxelberger said that Keyshawn Gilbert will be rehabbing for the rest of the season. They're sitting him out. There's a possibility that could be some addition by subtraction there. And as long as Momcilovic is making threes, Taman Lipsey at the point, I think that is way too much firepower and efficiency for North Carolina to handle. Exciting matchup between Marquette and Michigan State. Michigan State has been, so hot. What do you think? How lucky would we to get this matchup? Marquette's great. I love Shaka Smart. This feels like one of those Michigan State Tom Izzo teams. And we haven't seen these type of teams for a long time, the way they play with tempo, pace, and speed. I like Sparty to advance here. All right, that brings us to the next part of the bracket. The very exciting, we have Auburn. Remember, they lost 3 of their last 4 games coming into this. So they're got to turn things around in order for this bracket to even happen. Auburn, UC San Diego, is it going to be the #1 team? It's going to be Auburn. Okay. Yeah, it still has to be Auburn. UC San Diego, great, heck of a run, going to be a Sweet 16. I really believe that. Auburn, just too much, too good. And between the bottom matchup here, 2-3? Iowa State, I still think is one of those teams that can win it all. But the other of those 7-8 teams is Michigan State. And I know they weren't ranked in the top 25, and there's been plenty of analytics about that. This feels like a Tom Izzo team. I know it's a bit chalky. I understand that. Jace Richardson, Jay Nakins, I'm a huge fan of Sparty and the way they're playing right now. So we have it down to Auburn and Michigan State. You just said it's a little chalky. It is a little chalky, but it would be a great matchup. Who has the edge here? It's very chalky right now. How about a light chalk? I'm going with Sparty. I'm going with Michigan State. We'll I love this Auburn team, and I love Bruce Pearl, but I think this Michigan State team, the way that they play on both ends of the floor, is going to cause a lot of problems. I think Michigan State, particularly in transition, is going to frustrate Auburn enough to advance here. I like Sparty. So you have the Spartans coming out of the South. Great breakdown of every team doing what they can to make their way to the Final Four, and it's the Spartans that you think are going to come out on top in the South. We got much more to come here on HQ Spotlight. Next up, we're going to go to the East region, where Duke is the 1 seed, despite not being the overall #1 seed. Do they have the best path to the Final Four? We'll discuss that with Mike O'Donnell next. Back here on HQ Spotlight, Jenny Dell, Mike O'Donnell. We're going through the entire bracket, breaking down every region, every game, and we got our stud over here that is just
going through all this information. So if you're going home and you're filling out your brackets today, just follow the man.
I haven't slept for 3 days diving into this.
Just rip up your bracket already, because that's
Might be a good idea. Yeah.
how this rolls out. Okay, we're going to talk about the East region. A lot of star power in this one, Mike. Let's rip through it all.
Don't think that Cooper Flagg will play. So we got Duke advancing to there. I think that's going to be a 30-point game. Mississippi State, Baylor. That's a tough matchup for Baylor. Honestly, I do think it's a coin flip, Jenny, but I'd like Mississippi State to advance.
All right, so we got Duke, Mississippi State. Moving on, when you look at Liberty and Oregon, I have a feeling that 12-5 matchup, we all like to see a little upset here. Are you going with Liberty?
You can't do too many 12-5 upsets, but you need to do this for Liberty. Moving on past Oregon, a big win there. And I think Arizona, Akron. Arizona matches up terribly with Akron. That could be a 30-point win for Arizona. I like Arizona.
Wait, real quick, though.
Yeah.
Liberty over Oregon?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Okay, so
just break it down a little for me.
Liberty has the opportunity to be one of America's team in the way that they play. They are one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. They've been one of the best three-point shooting teams in Conference USA. They play at an effective field goal percentage that is off the charts. An effective field goal percentage means that's more important than field goal percentage because they take into account that a 3 is worth more than a 2. Liberty's offense might be the most beautiful offense in the entire March Madness bracket.
Beautiful.
When they're making beautiful, poetic, whatever you want to say, when they're making threes, they're good enough to get to the Elite Eight. If they're not making threes, they could lose in this game. I'm betting on Liberty playing hot after winning the Conference USA tournament. That's a tough matchup for Oregon.
Ooh, I can't wait for that one. Everyone's very excited about this BYU VCU matchup.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it's going to be a battle out there. Which one you going with?
I think it's my favorite game in the first round. Yeah, it's going to be so good. I love the BYU team. They play a modern NBA-style offense, a ton of three-point shots. VCU, though, just doesn't have enough defensively to hang with BYU. I'm saying that to also say VCU is also one of the best defensive teams in the country. I just like the way that BYU is playing. Wisconsin, Montana, really tough matchup for Montana. This could be a huge win. I like Wisconsin moving on. Okay, that's an easy one right there. Moving down to St. Mary's and Vandy. What do you got? Third favorite game. Okay. Absolutely love this chess match. Yeah, between Mark Byington, the head coach of Vanderbilt, who should have been the SEC Coach of the Year, in my opinion, and Randy Bennett of St. Mary's. Two different styles of offense. I like when you're on a neutral site, St. Mary's. Toughness, defense, Mitchell Saxon, Augustus Marshallonis. Really efficient, simple, slow tempo. Alabama, Robert Morris, oh boy, could be a big win for Alabama here. I like Alabama moving on. Yeah. Love Robert Morris. They're great. They don't have the firepower to hang with Alabama. Okay, so we're moving on up. So we got Duke, Mississippi State, Liberty, Arizona. Where are we going with this? We're going with Duke because this is the game that Cooper Flagg plays. Doesn't play in the first. I don't think he'll play in the first game. I don't think that's been officially announced yet. You have to play Cooper Flagg against Mississippi State. Is this like inside info that you have for us? Or no. This is just Irish dumb luck. Yeah, that's all that is. But Mississippi State, tough, physical, gritty, grinds you out, but they have never played an offense like Duke's offense. Liberty, Arizona, I don't think you're ready for this. I'm actually really not sure you're ready for this. I think the passing and the three-point shooting of Liberty, even though Arizona has the height advantage, they've been great defensively all season long. I believe Liberty could be America's team this season. They beat Arizona to advance to the Sweet 16. You made fun of me for going a little too chalky in the previous region. No chalk right here. I understand Duke advancing to the Sweet 16. Whoa! Cade Matheny, Colin Porter, that backcourt, 5'9", 5'10", shoot the lights out of three. It's like having Steve Nash and Peyton Pritchard in your backcourt. Those guys are pretty good. Okay, so you have Liberty beating a 5 seed and a 4 seed. Happens every year. That's right. It does happen every year. Yeah. There's going to be one team. Circling it. Moving on, BYU, Wisconsin. Where are we going with this? A huge fan of BYU's offense. Yegor Demon is going to understand and look at why he is going to be a lottery pick as a tall point guard. I like BYU to advance Wisconsin. Most people aren't going to pick that. I understand the consistency of Wisconsin. I just think BYU and their tempo right now, the way they're playing, that's a bad matchup for the Badgers. St. Mary's, Alabama. Wow, cannot wait for that potential matchup. Is that number 2 of your favorite? Because I think we got 1 and we had 3. I got a lot of favorites. Basically, every game in the NCAA Tournament is my favorite because it's the best time of the year. This is a terrible matchup for the Crimson Tide. Tell me you're picking St. Mary's. I am picking St. Mary's to advance. When teams are able to slow down and defend the three, which St. Mary's does at an elite level, top 25 in the country, they play at one of the slowest tempos in college basketball on a neutral site. Defense wins, defense advances, and tempo advances St. Mary's to the Sweet 16. How about that?
I'm really proud of you for doing the opposite of the South region and not going chalk in this one.
A little bit George Costanza, do the opposite of what you think.
Do the opposite of what you think. I mean, that's what makes the most successful brackets. Okay, let's move on up. So we're going St. Mary's, moving on there. So we got Duke Liberty. Is this where Liberty's dreams die? And also, I want to ask a little bit more about Cooper Flagg, but I have a feeling that you're going to have Duke moving on in this one.
I do have Duke moving on. Yes, I do. And it's not that Liberty, it died. It just, kind of petered out. That's the way. We're going to be really positive about this. Yes.
Way nicer than
That's right.
Yeah.
But BYU, St. Mary's.
That's an interesting one.
I hope we get that game.
Yeah.
Because St. Mary's is going to go from elite offense in Alabama to another elite offense in BYU. But this is where the journey ends for St. Mary's. BYU, their offense, Richie Saunders is a name to pay attention to for BYU. Richie Saunders is one of those All-American players that's fallen under the radar. Nobody talked about how he could even be a potential first-round draft pick. Could be one of those stars of March for BYU. Richie Saunders is tough as nails.
Remember that name. So we have a Duke-BYU battle in the East. I've got to ask also, we talked about Cooper Flagg. We know that he got hurt. You don't think he's going to play in that first round. How much do you think we will see of him as the tournament continues? Do you think he's going to be full health at any point? What are your expectations there?
When you sprain an ankle that bad, you're never at full health. The thing with a sprained ankle, though, is I probably had 350 sprained ankles in my career. Short, slow, unathletic. I'm going to say the joke for you. However, when you tape it up, the thing about a sprained ankle, though, if you can get it warm, you get it loose, and you tape it up, you kind of forget about it about halfway through the game. Cooper Flagg, everybody stopped talking about his toughness. I think the kid is tough. I think he's dialed in. I think he has the mental fortitude to be not just the #1 pick, but to be an NBA All-Star. I love what he brings to the table. I just think that there's going to be enough Cooper Flagg here to advance.
So it's all about the mental aspect.
At that time,
at that point, how much pain can you deal with?
When you're talking the Elite Eight, we always forget you're exhausted, you're tired, you're banged up, you're bruised, shots aren't falling, the mental, the physical aspect. Nobody talks about it enough, how tired teams are. I've never advanced to an Elite Eight. I couldn't imagine the toll on your body that it takes to get there, but Cooper Flagg getting a lot of rest, not playing that first game. Duke can win without Cooper Flagg, depending on the matchup. Con Knippel, so tough, so good. Malawatch down low, absolutely tough. I like Duke.
Knippel stepped up when he needed them the most.
Yes, he did.
So you're going Duke to make it out of the East. Duke doing their thing, according to Mike O'Donnell.
That's right.
We'll see. They're looking to advance to the Final Four for the second time in 4 seasons. Up next, we've been talking about them off camera, those Florida Gators, perhaps the most difficult path of all the 1 seeds to get to the Final Four. I don't know, our Jacqueline D'Agostino thinks so. Are they Mike's pick to get out of the West? That's next. Let's look at the West now. We were just talking about a lot of star power when it comes to the athletes. In the West, we could talk about that star power when it comes to the coaches. Fair to say?
Oh, this region, it's cinema.
Cinematic,
yes,
if you will. All right, let's break it down. Let's go into it all. We got a lot of good teams to talk about. That #1 team, the Florida Gators. We got a lot of Gators fans here, so if you see a little bias, that might be why it is. Going up against Norfolk State.
Well, I went to UCF. I didn't go to Florida, but I like Florida advancing here. Too deep. That's going to be. It should be a fairly easy win for Florida.
Okay, I went to UMass, not UConn, but I grew up in Connecticut, so let's talk about UConn.
I'm going with UConn here.
You better be.
I think I am. I don't want to get in trouble. But I do like the fact that UConn, their offense, Oklahoma has not faced that kind of schematically efficient offense that UConn has with Liam McNeely, Dan Hurley drawing up great stuff. I like UConn here.
Dan Hurley,
tough draw for Florida. That's a tough second-round matchup.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. Okay, moving on, though. We're talking Memphis, Colorado State. Your thoughts on this one?
I got another 12-5 upset here. I know.
I don't believe it.
Yep, another one. Colorado State, they're winning 10 in a row, winning the Mountain West. They have a player named Neat Clifford, off the charts, NBA-style prospect, maybe even potential lottery pick. Memphis turns the ball over too much. Colorado State never turns the ball over much. I like Colorado State. Maryland, Grand Canyon. This is a sneaky game for Maryland. Not easy. Grand Canyon isn't big, and Maryland has a player, Derek Queen, maybe fringe lottery pick as a freshman. So good in the post, but Maryland's too good here. I like them advancing.
Got a lot of people with Maryland going to the Final Four. Interested to hear your take on that. Next up, we've got Missouri and Drake.
Do you hate the Drake or you love the Drake?
I love the Drake.
I love the Drake, too.
How can you not love the Drake?
You got to love the Drake. Missouri's very good. Dennis Gates has done a phenomenal job this season. Drake is, outside of Liberty, America's team, slowest tempo in the country, but maybe the most efficient offense in the country. Texas Tech, UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington has a really solid offense, and most people aren't actually expecting it. It's going to be a closer game than people think. Texas Tech, though, too much firepower. That's a deep and talented team.
Okay, so we got Drake and Texas Tech moving on. This 7-10 matchup between Kansas and Arkansas. Talk about coaching legends going up against one another. You got Bill Self going up against Coach Cal there. Who has the edge?
Kansas has the edge. Arkansas doesn't have enough firepower defensively to slow down Kansas offensively. Kansas advances.
I'm a Kansas fan because that's one of the games that I covered this year, and I just loved Bill Self, that entire program. It was coming off the BYU-Utah loss, so they were fired up that they needed to get back out there and show what they were capable of. A lot of people were down on Kansas, but hey, you have them advancing.
Arkansas's backcourt is solid, and when they're rolling, they're really good and capable of beating anybody. However, they don't have anybody in the front court that could match up with Hunter Dickinson. And if Kansas is, this is Bill Self in NCAA tournament time. This is a man who knows what he's doing, obviously. I do like Kansas getting past Arkansas there. I think Hunter Dickinson is too good, and I just think the more DeJuan Harris plays well offensively, the deeper Kansas can go.
Did you know that Hunter Dickinson works here at CBS Sports HQ?
I've seen a couple of those hits. Yeah, does a good job. Does a nice job.
He's one of our analysts out there, so we got to give him some love.
Absolutely.
Okay, 15-2, St. John's, Omaha. I mean, St. John's story this entire year has just been incredible. Do you have them advancing?
Well, the better story is actually the trash can of Omaha. After every game that Omaha wins, a trash can gets destroyed. I mean, but that trash can's not going to happen. St. John's is too good. St. John's defense is so good. It might be one of the best defenses I've seen on film in the last decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
That's a big statement there,
yes.
Mike O'Donnell. All right, Florida and UConn. Now, you're going like Jacqueline with the Gators, me with the Huskies.
Terrible, terrible, terrible matchup for Florida, but they still win. Yeah. Florida's just too good. I think they can match up with the physicality. They have the depth. They have the three-point shooting. Walter Clayton Jr.'s going to be the best point guard on the floor in that game. Florida advances.
While I say that, I also have Florida to win it all, so just ignore it.
It's a safe pick. It's a safe pick. Yeah.
I know, it is pretty safe. Colorado State, Maryland, what do you like here?
How about this? You ready for this? A little 12-4 upset. Colorado State Rams.
Stop.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Colorado State advances to the Sweet 16. Nico Medved keeps the juices flowing, continuing on their season. I think the passing of Colorado State and the play of Nick Clifford is going to be a very difficult matchup for Maryland. I understand analytically Maryland is top 30 in the country in offense and defense, according to Ken Palm, on both the adjusted and defensive offensive efficiency. Colorado State is playing as good as anybody in the country. That's Nick Clifford. He's going to be an NBA draft pick. They assist on 62% of their made field goals. That's 8th best in the country. I think Maryland's going to have a real issue trying to slow down Colorado State's offense. I like them in the Sweet 16, Jacqueline.
Excuse me,
Jenny.
Well, you saw Florida up there talking about Colorado State moving on against Florida, so I understand the name confusion.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep rolling in this one. We love the Drake. We're going up against Texas Tech, though. Are we sticking with the Drake?
I want to love the Drake here.
You don't.
You know what's really interesting about this matchup is one of the best friends and essentially a coaching mentor of Texas Tech's head coach Grant McCasland is Ben McCullum of Drake. So the X's and O's, right, that this game is going to be at a level to where I think schematically it's going to be really, really fun to watch diving into the X's and O's. But I think Texas Tech advances. Texas Tech can play fast. They can play slow. Drake wants to play slow. Texas Tech knows how to win games on both sides of winning fast, winning slow. I like the Red Raiders here.
We talked about coaching legends going up against one another. You look at this next matchup. You got Bill Self going up against Rick Pitino in this one. I mean, how do you pick one?
Can we put the meme of Martin Scorsese with his hands up and saying that is cinema? Because that's what that game is going to be from a coaching standpoint. St. John's defense is essentially like preparing for an angry hornet's nest.
Wow.
And that they do this thing called peel switching, and where NBA teams do it in a certain way, in a little bit of a slower way. St. John's does peel switching in a way that I've never seen in my entire life.
Explain to us what that means.
So it's a constant switching defense.
Okay.
So every time, if there's a pass, there's the dribble handoff, if there's a slight interchange, they switch, not just to switch out on someone, but they switch to deny. And so they're looking for deflection, steals. The best way to describe their defense, if you don't turn the ball over, they make you take shots that you don't practice. So they force you to take like 14, 15-foot mid-range contested jumpers. Nobody practices those. St. John's and Rick Pitino, that defense is serious. I think they advance.
You're going with St. John's over here.
I am.
Okay, so we got St. John's advancing. And now we got Florida going up against Colorado State. We've talked about Florida, the strength of that program. Is this where Colorado State's dreams end? Not to be, again, I didn't kill them off this time, I just ended their dream.
Yes, I think Colorado State will celebrate the fact that they made it to the Sweet 16.
As they should.
That's the way that we should say that. But Florida is way too good, way too deep. They advanced for Colorado State. That game, wow, holy smokes. That's going to be a really, really absolute battle.
This one right here?
Yeah, it's going to be a battle.
What do we do? What do we do?
I'm going a little chalky here. I'm going defense. Texas Tech, when they're not making threes, that is an issue for them. When Chance McMillan is off, Texas Tech's offense is off, and I think St. John's has the right kind of peel-switching defense to advance.
Okay, so we've got a Florida-St. John's matchup. You mentioned it's a little chalky, 1 versus 2. Who's going to take home the cake to go to the Final Four?
Have to go with the Florida Gators. I think because Florida can play slow, they can play fast, because they can go inside and out, because they can play in transition, St. John's is going to be able to prepare for their half-court offense. I do not think St. John's will be able to compare for Florida's defense. Florida loves to take great defense and move to offense. They're a phenomenal shot-blocking team, and as we know, Jenny Dell, block shots are fast break catalysts. That's the one Achilles heel for St. John's. They're a very average transition defense team, and they tend to turn the ball over a little bit too much when they try to play the same style of play that Florida does. I like the Gators.
So you've got the Florida Gators taking home the West, going to the Final Four out there in that West region. Up next, we've got our last one. We're working our way through all of these, going to the Midwest now. Houston, the favorites to emerge, but could any team challenge the Cougars? We're going to dive into that one with Mike O'Donnell next. Alrighty, we are back here. Jenny Dell, Mike O'Donnell, breaking down the Midwest region. That was very Vanna White of me in that moment. We've been going through every single region. We're on our final one, so thanks for sticking with us. We're going to talk about this Houston program, 26-1 since the start of December. SIUE, do they have a chance?
No.
Okay.
Congratulations. It's their first tournament ever, right? But congratulations. Yeah, Houston, this is way, way too good of a defense. SIUE has never faced a toughness like Houston.
So you think it's probably going to get a little ugly in that one?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes in those neutral site floors early on it might be a little bit, but second half I think you get a late pull away.
Okay, let's move on. We've got the Zags going up against Georgia. I feel like this is a good matchup.
I feel bad for Gonzaga fans. That is a terrible seat for Gonzaga. They're a Ken Palm, essentially top 15, top 20 team.
So what do you think happened?
They should have. I don't know. I don't know what a lot of things happen with this NCAA tournament. They should be like a 6 seed. Tough matchup with Georgia. I think the physicality of Georgia is going to bother Gonzaga, but the backcourt matchup wins for Gonzaga, moving on Ryan Nembhard, the best passer in college basketball.
All right, we got another 5-12 matchup coming up between Clemson and McNeese. What do you got?
Everybody's picking Will Wade here, right? He's a Clemson graduate. Everybody's talking about Will Wade's going to move on from McNeese State. This is a Big 12. No, absolutely not. We're going full chalk here. Clemson is tough. They are efficient. They have a fantastic tempo, and where they're extremely methodical in the way they play. Ian Shefflin, the chef down low. Give me all that all day. Clemson, too much for McNeese.
The chef down low. Okay, looking at Purdue and High Point. I've been saying this all week long. If there was an award for the most lively celebration on Selection Sunday, 100% would go to High Point. I love seeing all the students behind them in support. Do they have a chance against Purdue?
High Point, one of the best X's and O's offense in the entire tournament. Love their efficiency. Not enough, though. Still, Braden Smith, Purdue, moving on. I like Purdue a lot more than I think a lot of other people do.
People are low on Purdue.
I think it's a huge mistake. High Point's getting a lot of love, in the betting markets. Apparently, I don't bet. I've never done it before. But
never?
No, actually not. It's against NCAA rules. And I got Purdue moving on.
All right, let's move on here. This should be a good one. We got Illinois going up against Texas, 11-6. Where are you going?
Terrible, terrible draw for Illinois. We're either playing Texas or Xavier. They're both teams that are awesome in ball screen action. This is a bad matchup for Illinois, who's been very streaky. They can beat teams by 20, or they can lose to teams by 30. You saw what happened when they played Duke. I like Texas here. I think Texas on-ball action with Trey Johnson, the lottery pick, a little too much for Illinois.
So does Xavier have any chance? I know that game's coming up tonight.
It's going to be a great game. Everything comes down to Texas making shots off the bounce. They're actually 6th in the country in dribble jump shot shooting efficiency. That's going to be a big deal for Texas making mid-range.
Moving our way down here, we've got Kentucky going up against Troy. What do you like?
There's a lot of analytical gurus that like Troy, especially their offense, that think that this could be a game to where 14 upsets a 3. I love this Kentucky team. I love the way they play. I think it's almost impossible to prepare for how good of a passing team they are, how good of a shooting team they are, and how well they play in transition. I understand there are issues defensively. I think Kentucky too much for Troy.
Ooh, okay. So we got Texas and Kentucky moving on, an 11 seed and a 3 seed moving up to the next matchup. We've got UCLA going up against Utah State.
Nobody is talking about Utah State.
Talk to me about Utah State then.
All I'm going to say is they had one of the nation's longest winning streaks. Mason Falslev, Ian Martinez have one of the best backcourts in the country, at least the most underrated backcourt in the country as far as I'm concerned. Too much for UCLA, who's been up and down all season long. I'll take Utah State's offense. Utah State zone defense against UCLA. UCLA hasn't played much zone this year.
Got the Aggies moving on.
Yeah.
Tennessee, I know I should know how to pronounce this correctly.
Wofford.
I've heard Wofford. I've heard Wofford. We're going Wofford.
My son picked Wofford to win this game because he says it sounds like waffles. And Whoppers. It sounds like a combination between waffles and Whoppers, which is why Luke O'Donnell picked Tennessee to advance. Excuse me, look why he picked Wofford to advance.
Wofford to advance, but you
father,
are picking.
Dad, Tennessee, too good, too much for Wofford.
Sometimes you got to go with the sun.
I understand. Yeah.
All right, so this should be an exciting one. We have the Zags going up against Houston. Are we sticking chalky here? Or is Houston just going to make its way down to the Final Four?
Brutal matchup for Houston in the second round, pulling Gonzaga like that. But yes, I've got Houston advancing. Actually, I will say, though, that a lot depends on the health of Juwan Roberts, who's been a little banged up here recently late in the season. If he's healthy, that matchup with Graham Ike down low is going to be an absolute war, but I like Houston moving on.
The Zags with 9 straight Sweet 16 apperances. This would
snap
it. It ends this year.
This weekend.
Moving on to Clemson and Purdue. Who are you going with?
How about actually, who do I have?
Let's take a look at it.
I have Purdue moving on. Excuse me. At first, I was like, I second-guessed myself this morning, and I was like going through it, and I'm like, I went back and forth. I was studying synergy all the way through.
Is this one of the toughest decisions you've had to make?
I think with the loss of Dylan Hunter for Clemson, I think it's going to be an issue playing in the second round against Purdue. I think the backcourt of Purdue is better than the backcourt of Clemson. In those second-round games, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, a little bit too much. I like the Boilermakers moving on.
Going against a lot of bettors that are out there. A lot of people not so high on Purdue. You have them moving on in this one. Looking at Texas and Kentucky in this matchup, which one you going with?
It ends. Texas's miraculous run ends. We're moving on with Kentucky. There's no.
I mean, the fact if they make it this far after being first in, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know. I know I'm pushing the boundary a little bit here. I don't think anybody thinks that Kentucky could move on to the second weekend. I just think that when you haven't played against that offense, it's an issue to scout against in a 24-hour window.
Yeah.
So I like Kentucky moving on.
Okay, Utah State, Tennessee. Tell me that you got the Aggies moving on.
I think Tennessee may have a hard time scoring against that Utah State zone because you just haven't seen it that much. But too much defensively. I think Tennessee understands how to defend against the backcourt of Utah State. It's a great offense. It's very smooth, analytically extremely efficient. Too much. Got Tennessee moving on.
So Kentucky, Tennessee will be the matchup there. Let's work our way down. Houston, can we just pause for a second?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But it's the only time I've done this.
Okay.
It's the only time I've done this.
I'll give you a pass.
It's the only time I've gone full chalk here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
only
fine.
time.
So is it Houston or Purdue?
It is Houston.
It's Houston.
It is Houston. I'm ready for the world to see that this is the season where I think Houston has an opportunity to do something that they've never done. And I don't think Purdue, I think offensively, is going to really, really struggle with how physical and good Houston's defense is.
And Kentucky, Tennessee, who's moving on here?
Well, I want to go offense, Jenny Dell, because I was just maybe a slightly more than adequate defender. But going with defense with Tennessee, I got to tell you, I think Chaz Lanier, as much as we talk about Tennessee's defense, which you can make a case that it is at worst the third best defense in the country, and at best they're the number one defense in the country. They move on. Chaz Lanier, shooter, can come off screens in a way that I think the general sports fan is going to be ready for how good Chaz Lanier is going to be in the NCAA tournament.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Circle the name there. So we have a Houston-Tennessee matchup to go to the Final Four. Who is going to be your pick when it comes to the Midwest?
Man, we got Kelvin Sampson versus Rick Barnes. I mean, that X's and O's, but got to go Houston. I'm all in on the Cougars. I think their ability to shoot the three at a high level is going to be the difference maker. It's their best three-point shooting team they've ever had. We always know Houston's good defensively, but their three-point shooting is off the charts, especially when Emmanuel Sharp gets going.
All right, so it's the Cougars that are going to be advancing in the Midwest region, making their way to the Final Four. Up next, we are crowning a champion. We have our Final Four set. So Florida, Michigan State, Duke, and Houston. Does sound a little chalky, I'm not going to lie. Coming up, we're going to crown that champ. Don't go anywhere. Back here on HQ Spotlight, Jenny Dell, Mike O'Donnell. We've been breaking down his bracket. It's a little chalky, folks. It's a little chalky. We got 3 1 seeds and then Michigan State going up here. We want to break down your Final Four, and we're going to start with that Michigan State-Florida matchup. You got to think, in March, coaching definitely matters. So you got Tom Izzo going up against a coach who's never been in this position before, and Todd Golden, who's going to be the winner.
Well, now Todd Golden's absolutely going to move on. I got Florida winning over Michigan State. Yes, advancing. I don't think
Maybe coaching doesn't matter.
I don't think I've seen a team this season with the Florida Gators that have been able to play at virtually any style against man, zone, press, switching. The Gators are the deepest team in college basketball, and for that reason, they're absolutely moving on past Michigan State.
I shouldn't say that coaching doesn't matter. It does matter, but coaching experience in this one. Todd putting himself in a new spot.
January, February, Izzo. I understand. I understand the whole lingo. Yeah,
you
sure.
Understand the lingo.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
Okay, so we have Florida going to the national championship game. Of course, you'll find that on CBS. We also have a matchup here between Duke and Houston. Which way we swinging?
So what's going to be really interesting about this game is, I think from a scouting standpoint, right, this is like an analyst's dream to break down this game. The way that Duke plays offensively, the way that Houston plays defensively, I actually think pick and roll action will come down to the most. So if you're watching the ball screen, actually, in this game, if we had this game, this is what you need to pay attention to. Duke is about 50% effective field goal percentage in ball screen action. Houston is essentially the best team in the country at defending ball screens. I think if that blows up, I actually could see Houston advancing to the national championship game. I know that's a bit in the weeds, and we want to talk about John Shire, Kelvin Sampson, and big picture stuff. That key point, I think, is the reason why Houston advances to the national championship game. Their three-point shooting and their defense, particularly in ball screen action. If
Cooper Flagg was 100%, would you still be making this decision to have Houston advance?
Absolutely. Okay. No question about it. I think there are certain teams defensively that when you look at them and you watch them on film and how they match up individually, how they match up collectively, I think it's a really bad matchup for Duke.
Looking at our national championship game, this would be a great matchup. Florida, Houston. Yeah. Who is going to be cutting down the nets at the end of it all?
It will not be Todd Golden and the Florida Gators. It will be the Houston Cougars for their first national championship ever. I think this is a Houston team because of their path. I think they're going to have a couple games where they're going to have an opportunity to rest a few of their starters leading into this. If Houston stays healthy, they can win the national championship. Last season, I thought Houston was good enough to win the national championship. They didn't stay healthy. Jamal Shead got hurt. If they stay healthy, Houston is the physical defense, the efficient offense, good enough to beat the Florida Gators, who I know everybody is picking Florida to win it all. It's either Florida, Duke. I like Houston here. So, Jenny, it's chalky, but it's not super chalky.
There's someone that has a few words for you.
Hi, Jacqueline D'Agostino.
Yeah.
Hi,
what would you like to say to our dear friend?
Did you go to Florida by chance?
I did.
She was a dazzler.
I was on the dance team for 4 years. I was there in 2014 when we went to the Final Four last time out in Dallas. So it's interesting, right? Because MOD, we had BJ yesterday who did a bracket breakdown. He did Florida Duke with Duke ultimately winning. You're doing Florida Houston with Houston winning. We're all talking about Florida, their size, the depth. They're the hottest team in the country right now. But I feel like all of our analysts here, at least on Spotlight and HQ, are not picking them. What would it take then for Florida, in your opinion, to beat a Houston or beat a Duke if they do get there?
This is going to sound, there are two really boring answers to that question. I think it's a great question, but the two really boring answers I think are kind of simple things. The one thing about Houston is they will have a tendency, depending on matchups, to get in foul trouble. And that is a major issue up front, because as good as Houston's front court is, Florida's isn't as good, but it's deeper. They can throw more bodies that way. And also the three-point line. If Houston's missing threes, if Emmanuel Sharp is off, if LJ Cryer is making shots, absolutely their defense can get stagnant. All the way up until this point, Jacqueline D'Agostino, Houston's winning these games to the national championship because of their defense. But offensively, they're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. Florida is one of the best at defending the three. That could be a major issue. And absolutely, those two reasons, even though they're not exciting to talk about for TV, those are very legitimate reasons on how Florida could beat Houston.